Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the RotoBallers Radio Sleeper and Value Play here on RotoBallers YouTube channel. I'm your host, Anthony Aniano, taking a look at the value plays and sleepers for Week 3 of your fantasy football season. And we start at the quarterback position, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions going against the Minnesota Vikings. Priced at $5,800 on DraftKings for this week. This player has thrown for 471 yards and 6 touchdowns on the season. His premium matchup rating over at RotoBallers.com sits at 118.8. He's got an elite wide receiver in Amon-Ra St. Brown. DeAndre Swift is healthier and back out on the field. TJ Hawkinson at tight end. This Lions team can put up points, can fall behind, be forced to throw, everything you like in a fantasy quarterback situation. He goes against the Minnesota Viking defense that has allowed the 10th most fantasy points to quarterbacks through the first 2 weeks at 25.6. That is allowing 296.5 passing yards per game. At the running back position, my first running back sleeper and value play for Week 3 of the season is Cordarrelle Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons against the Seattle Seahawks. A RotoBallers premium value ranking of 115.6. He's valued on DraftKings at $5,800. He's averaging 80 yards rushing per game. A stronger Week 1 than Week 2, no doubt about it, but I still believe he gets more involved in the passing game as well as the season goes on. Seattle Seahawks have allowed the 9th most fantasy points to opposing running backs this season in a PPR format at 27 points per game. They are allowing 146 rushing yards per game. If Atlanta wants to win this game, they're going to have to lean on Cordarrelle Patterson's explosiveness, both running and catching the ball out of the backfield. My second running back on the sleeper and value play list, David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears against the Houston Texans. Justin Fields has not looked good in my opinion. Could do better. Darnell Mooney has not been involved. David Montgomery has been involved, averaging 4.6 yards per carry and 74 rushing yards per game, including a 100-yard performance last week. Priced at $5,900 on DraftKings this week, Montgomery goes against a Houston defense that's allowing the 6th most fantasy points to opposing running backs so far this season at 27.4. The Houston Texans have allowed an astronomical 163 rushing yards per game. At wide receiver, Chris Olave of the New Orleans Saints, the rookie. The rookies have been doing a terrific job out wide this season. Olave on the road against the Carolina Panthers, I like. Terrific game last week. He's got 16 targets in 2 games. He's been heavily involved. Just not in the end zone yet, but that will come. He's averaging 60.5 receiving yards a game. But again, the big number for me on Olave, 16 targets, 8 targets per game so far through the first 2. Now, Carolina's defense has been good, 24.9 fantasy points a game allowed to wide receivers, and only 161.5 passing yards a game. But with one of those games going against the Giants and Daniel Jones, it's a little bit skewed. Chris Olave, count on those 8 targets or more continuing in Week 3. My second wide receiver on the sleeper and value playlist, Tyler Lockett against the Atlanta Falcons. Lockett on the year, 12 receptions on 15 targets, 135 yards. No touchdown yet, but 67.5 receiving yards a game, $5,800 price tag on DraftKings. Atlanta allows the 3rd most receiving fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. 50.7 fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers. They've allowed 5 touchdowns to a wide receiver already this year as Atlanta's defense, and they allow 270.5 passing yards per game. Tyler Lockett, if he's on the fringe for you, get him in your lineup. And finally, at the tight end position, Tyler Higbee of the Arizona Cardinals. He's off to a strong start. He's been targeted 20 times in 2 games, 10 targets per game, averaging 6 catches and 55 yards per game. It's over 10 fantasy points a game. And I expect Tyler Higbee to remain involved this week against Arizona. Arizona has allowed 29.1 points per game to opposing tight end, including tight end ones like Travis Kelce with 26.1 fantasy points and Darren Waller in Week 2 with 17 fantasy points. They've allowed 19 receptions, 212 yards, and 3 total touchdowns to opposing tight ends. Tyler Higbee is priced at a measly $4,500 on DraftKings. In recap, the Week 3 sleeper and value playlist: Jared Goff, quarterback against the Minnesota Vikings; Cordarrelle Patterson against the Seattle Seahawks; David Montgomery against the Houston Texans at running back; wide receivers: Chris Olave against the Carolina Panthers and Tyler Lockett against the Atlanta Falcons; and my tight end on the sleeper and value playlist, Tyler Higbee against the Arizona Cardinals. If you're looking for more great Week 3 content, head over to RotoBaller.com right now. Sign up for premium package using the promo code ACES. Follow me on Twitter at Aniano Fantasy. And good luck in Week 3, everybody. See you next time right here on RotoBaller Radio.